Hey there everyone. So in this video I'm going to discuss about different web scraping techniques and how you should be approaching a project using three different types of web scraping methods such as requests plus PS4, that is beautiful soap 4. Then we have requests plus API based process, and then we have the browser based method. And in requests plus PS4 based method you will be able to make HTTP request to different websites, and then we'll be able to get the HTTP response from the website and then parse the HTTP response using the beautiful soup library and then extract the relevant information from it. And it is faster and lightweight, that takes a very less amount of resources from any computing system. And next one is the API based method. There will be different types of websites that will actually use APIs to display their information, and you won't be able to use beautiful soap for those cases. And in those cases you have to use the API directly, which can be their internal API or it can be their official API, depending on what you actually want to achieve. And the last one is the browser-based scraping, where the process is slower and has resource requirement more than the other ways. So in browser-based scraping, you will be using a browser interface such as a Selenium-based framework that will actually use Google Chrome or Firefox or Microsoft Edge, or for example it can be Opera too, depending on what framework you use, and it will be able to navigate through the website like a human does. And compared to HTTP request based method, that is the request library, this one actually makes more request than the request library itself. So this is why it is more resource inefficient, and it makes more requests, and which is why it is slower comparative to other approaches. So make sure that you are familiar with captcha, firewall, IPVAN, and proxy in order to start your web scraping journey, because you will be able to uh, overcome different problems if you understand what the problem is and how to solve the problem. For example, if there is a website where there is a captcha that must have to be solved, you have to understand how the captcha has to be solved. Either it is a manual way you want to solve the captcha, or if you want to integrate captcha solving system to actually solve the captcha. And there are firewalls that can actually prevent access to their website as well. So you have to understand how and what criteria they actually follow in order to activate their firewall, and how they actually want to allow a visitor. For example, there can be websites that will allow only visitors with United States IP address, but they won't let anyone in from, let's say, any other country like Singapore, for example. So in that case, you have to use proxies to overcome those firewall restrictions. And there are IP ban scenarios as well. For example, when you want to extract a lot of information from a website, you actually will face issues where they may block your IP address from accessing their system or their network. And in that case, you must have to use proxy cycling in order to access the website without any problems. So you may have to get proxy that are paid ones, and also there are free ones available too. So you have to decide depending on what budget you have for the project. So always try to observe, make plans, and execute in order to decide which type of approach you want to use. And to help you understand the whole process, I have gathered three different types of URLs, and I'll be doing some programming demonstration for you to understand how they are actually different and what type of approach you want to uh, go with. So you have to observe the website, you have to make plans, and then you have to execute. So if you have any question about this so far, you can write down in the comment section below. And let's move on to the list of URLs so that we can see everything in action. So here is an example, a normal website that does not have any kind of bot protection system or any kind of issues. So I have already opened this in my browser here. So this is a HTML based website where you will be able to use requests library and beautiful soap library to extract information. So for the demonstration, I can create some code here so that I can actually show you. So let's open a file. So let's name it, let's say normal .py. So I'm going to import the requests library. Then I'm going to create a function named get results. Then we are going to make HTTP requests using our link. So I'm going to paste the link that I have copied already. And now we have to use the beautiful soap library here. So from PS4 import beautiful soap as PS. And here we are going to create a soap, and you have to actually look for tutorials on how to use beautiful soap, because in this video I'm going to help you understand different concepts instead of explaining how beautiful soap library or how things works in Python. So please watch videos on these particular libraries to understand more better about them, and let's focus on how you can actually collect the information in this way. So in SOAP we have data like this, and here you have to observe how they design their page. So at first you want to actually identify this card, right? So in you can use this icon, then you can hover over to identify this particular card. So here you can see we have uh, product thumb div, so we could target this for each of the elements. Let's say that we want to get results, so dot find product thumb, let's say. So let's try to print how many results do we have. Let's say total results like this, and let's run this. And I'm using Windsurf code editor here that helps me automate generating some AI generated code based on whatever code base I have, and it is very useful. So you can take a look at Windsurf on Google to install it and use it as a coding assistant. So let's start by running it to see what happens. So here you can see we now have 20 results. So we are able to get 20 records, and you can try to print the URL. For example, let's say that we have div class name. So if I want, I can actually loop through the records. For example, for results, so let's say title, that is the div class name. So let's try to print the name here and see if this works. So here you can see we are able to actually access the names, and you can access any other information the same way using beautiful soap. So let's move on to the next example, that is the API based one. And here is an UK website named AutoTrader, which is a car rental website. So I have this open here as well. So as you can see, if you scroll down, you will be able to see an API endpoint. And to get this, you have to normally right click here, then click on inspect, then go to network tab, then make sure that you enable preserve log, then click here to clear everything. This will ensure that everything is cleared. And if you scroll down, you will see something like AT gateway OP name, and this is what actually shows the data. So if you go to the preview tab, you will be able to see search result, and you have the listing. Here you can see different advertising information such as their pages, their additional names, price tags, or anything like that. So in this kind of approach, all you have to do is you have to make a post request to this API. So let me create another file named, let's say, api.py. And here I'm going to import the request library the same way. And here we are not going to import the beautiful SERP library because it is an API. So we can say paginate records. And in this approach, you are going to make a post request. So I'm going to type HTTP post. And I have some code snippet that actually helps me speed up the process by actually in triggering some keywords and helps me generate them. You can look at how code snippets are created, and it is very useful and saves time. So here in the payload section, you will be able to see view sources. So all you have to do is copy everything over. So you can simply just copy this and paste it here as the data, and that should cover this. So we are going to try to print the JSON response because we know that the response is an API response. So we are now going to use if name main block, and if I run this, it should be able to generate the data. So let's try to print the response to understand if this works. So here we can see we have some errors like null is not defined. So this is a pure JSON data, but we are actually pasting this as a uh, raw data. So we want to convert this. So here you have to ensure that null is converted to none in Python. Then true is converted to capital true because that is how in Python it has been designed. So false has to be converted to false. So that is how you will be able to do this. And if you change this to JSON equal to data, so it will convert this to a JSON object and then it will pass that. So let's try to run this and it should be working perfectly. So here you can see we have some errors. So let's try to see what the response is using .text method. So here you can see we have detected this as a Cloudflare website. So that is another example. But normally what will happen is when you make a request to this particular website, it will be able to get the response like in the response tab. So you will be able to see all the data like this in an ideal scenario, but it seems to be a Cloudflare protected website as well. So in this case, you can try to temporarily fix this problem by adding cookie data like this. So if you copy this cookie data from this header section, you will be able to access this if everything works out perfectly. So let's try to do this. So that is cookie, but this is not a perfect way to actually access Cloudflare based website because they will still detect you either way. So you must have to include additional data and additional parameters as you can see. But I think it won't actually solve the problem because they will still understand and track you. So there is a problem here because they actually track a lot of things when you make a request to a Cloudflare protected website, such as they will check origin and all other things like this. And if you try to copy everything over and then try to make a request like the same way it does in the browser, it still may or may not work. But let's consider this as an example. So let's assume that you are accessing a website, but it isn't actually showing the data, but it is actually showing a Cloudflare page. So how do we actually solve this? So in order to solve this, we have the third method that I discussed earlier, that is the browser-based scripting. So what you have to do is convert this whole thing into a browser-based approach. So how do we do that? We have to delete everything. Then I have another snippet for the Selenium-based project. So Selenium is a browser framework, and there is another optimized framework named Undetected Chrome Driver, which allows us to access this type of Cloudflare protected website. For example, if I try driver.get, let's say, for example, Let's open this link to see if this works, and let's try to print input so that it does not exit, and then it can do driver.quit. So let's try to open this, and there will be some errors because we want to have the Chrome driver file. So let's try to download the Chrome driver file. So Chrome driver. So this is how you will be able to download the Chrome driver file by searching Google. Then you will see something like here. So if you go to stable, you will be able to see Chrome driver for different operating system, and in my case it is this one. So I'm going to open this link, and it should be downloading the file, but let's see what the problem is. Oops, not this one. Let's try to copy this link. Okay, so maybe Firefox had some issues. I'm going to close this, and oh, okay, Firefox was able to actually download this, but it did not prompt me anything, but I'm not sure why that happened. So all we need is this file. So we are going to go to the tutorial folder, then drag it here. And now if we go to our code and run it, it should be able to work perfectly. So as you can see, it is now opening a browser, and now the website is loading perfectly. So this is how you will be able to access the website that is Cloudflare protected. And you can then use Beautiful Soap library to, or you can also use the Selenium library's own system to actually locate an element, then extract the information. For example, you can access its HTML content by uh, writing driver dot page source. So this is going to contain the HTML of the website. So you can save like HTML equal to this, and then soap equal to bs4. So from Beautiful Soap we can do this as well, and that way you can use soap to actually extract information, and to navigate through the records you can actually scroll using a Selenium library as well if you want to. So that is how you will be able to actually use this kind of browser automation system. And here is another example which actually needs us to solve the Cloudflare protection, and it is a little bit harder compared to the other one. So here you can see it does not verify you as human. So to solve these type of problems you have to use different version of the browser. So let's try to sort this using let's say that let's change this URL. So we are going to use the undetected Chrome driver. So instead of WebDriver, so basically the Selenium library is the base of the browser automation system, and undetected Chrome driver is the updated version of it. So if you use the undetected Chrome driver, it should be able to work in most of the scenarios, but there are other libraries available too, such as Puppeteer and all other ones. So you have to play around with whichever ones actually work. So here you can see we have undetected Chrome driver working, and that is how you will be able to access websites that has higher restrictions of Cloudflare protection. So that's all for the video, and I hope I was able to replicate different types of website that you will be experiencing, and I hope you will be able to understand how to approach and what to use for different type of approaches for web scraping certain type of website. And this type of problem has to be manually addressed, and you have to be dynamic about how to approach the project and how to actually decide on which method you want to use. And depending on where you are actually running this, you have to be careful about it. For example, if you have a very normal type of device, using Selenium as the library may impact on the performance at some point, because if you have like 3 to 4 gigabytes of RAM, it will consume a lot of RAM. As you know that browsers usually consume lots of RAMs when you open a tab. So that is a concern you have to be careful about. And I think that's all for the video, and thank you very much for watching till now, and I hope you learned something. And if you have any question to ask about anything that you saw here, please write down in the comment section below. And if anyone, maybe any of your friend wants to learn web scraping techniques, you can share this with them, and they will hopefully learn something new from this. And I'll be seeing you in the next one.